The thing with hypnotherapy is that you remain in control at all times. And in actual fact, we don't realize this, but we all go into a light state of hypnosis several times a day. It's a very common thing, and that is actually a light state of hypnosis. And all it means is that the conscious mind, which is what we're using right now to have this conversation, to formulate words, to speak to one another, that's the conscious mind, isn't needed when we're doing that journey that we're so familiar with.
Welcome to another episode of Carpe, Diem, Living the Podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we are on the other side of the world in the UK with Sophie. And first of all, I just love people from the UK. I just think you guys are so cool. Like, I don't know if it's likewise or not with us Americans, but I just love it when I can speak to people from the UK. But yeah, so Sophie is a hypnotherapist, an author, Reiki Master Teacher, which I love Reiki, and she is a single mom, and I'm a single mom, so I mean, we already relate on that aspect. So tell us about your background with holistic medicine and natural healing methods.
Well, I was really lucky. Hello, by the way. I was really lucky, and I was raised in a household that was very open-minded, and we always had revolting natural remedies that we had to drink when we were little, and we had tummy aches and things like that. I was always brought up to believe that allopathic medicine was great, but that there were alternatives. And when I had my son, I was sort of reeling a bit, actually. It wasn't the best time of my life. I had really fairly severe postnatal depression, and my marriage was crumbling, and I was casting around for what I was supposed to do with my life. And the word Reiki just kind of pinged into my head. I'd heard of Reiki, but I had absolutely no idea what it was. And they do say that Reiki finds you rather than you finding it. So I took training as a Reiki Master Teacher, and that completely started a completely new chapter in my life. So that was 11 years ago, and I added in hypnotherapy a few years ago, and just found that the two therapies just blend so beautifully together. So that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years and loving it.
And you know what I have to mention? So you said you've been doing this for the past 11 years. Lately, I've had a lot of signs of 11. Like, I don't know, you know know what they say when the universe is speaking to you, and 11 is my favorite number. And really? Oh my God, we have a lot in common.
We do. 11s and 4s. I get really funny about 4s. For the last 14 years, I've lived in a number 4 house. Two different houses, but they were both number 4s.
Wow. And before we even started recording, I was telling Sophie how the podcast reached 11 countries. And so I had this joke that whatever country number 11 was going to be is where my next vacation was going to be at. And it's Colombia. So I was like, I guess I'm going to go to Colombia when COVID is over, or whenever we're able to travel. So yeah, I just had to point out the 11 because it's just, I feel like right now there's just a lot of cool things happening within like my world. So I'm like, let's see. But hypnotherapy, I got to say, I'm a huge fan of hypnotherapy. I came across hypnotherapy like a year and a half ago. And then Reiki, I actually got certified in Reiki 1 and 2. So I didn't carry on just because I want to really make sure I understand Reiki 1 and 2 first before I can go to the next level. But I feel like energy healing is so, so important. And I just love that more and more people are learning more about this. So if someone were to ask you, like, what is hypnotherapy? Because, there's that stigma that it's the one where you get put to sleep and you can't control yourself. And I always tell people, like, no, that's fake. Like, that's, in the entertainment world, that's not how it goes. So how would you describe hypnotherapy, and what are the benefits of it?
You're absolutely right. Stage hypnosis has nothing to do with hypnotherapy. The thing with hypnotherapy is that you remain in control at all times. And in actual fact, we don't realize this, but we all go into a light state of hypnosis several times a day. So, for example, if you've ever had the experience of just driving along to somewhere that you know the route, you've been there lots of times, and you arrive at your destination and you think, oh, God, I don't really remember driving here, and here I am. I don't
It
remember the
happened to me
journey at all.
yesterday. So I know what you mean.
It's a very common thing, and that is actually a light state of hypnosis. And all it means is that the conscious mind, which is what we're using right now to have this conversation, to formulate words, to speak to one another, that's the conscious mind, isn't needed when we're doing that journey that we're so familiar with. So the conscious mind just takes a little break. And then in that circumstance, the daydreaming subconscious mind comes up and it can play. And the subconscious mind is all about making pictures in your mind and problem solving and creating and all of that kind of daydreamy sort of brain state. And so when we're doing hypnotherapy, what we do is we just guide somebody into that lovely, relaxed, daydreamy sort of state, and they remain in control the entire time. But their mind is just opened up a little bit, and it's happy to receive suggestions that help, that are positive, and that the subconscious mind knows will serve. So, for example, no one can hypnotize you to cluck like a chicken unless you really want to go around clucking like a chicken. So that's how stage hypnosis works, is because people want to do that. They want to go along. But generally speaking, when people come to a hypnotherapist, it's because they want to give up smoking, or they want to ease their anxiety, or they want to be able to sleep better, or those kinds of things. And if the motivation is there, the subconscious mind will take any ideas that will help it keep us happy and safe, because that's its job.
Yeah, it's so powerful, because I know for myself, when I had hypnotherapy done, it was to get rid of limiting beliefs, right? And to get to the root of, you know, the core emotions that you feel: anger, sadness. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but you get what I'm saying. And so I remember when I was in that place, when I really needed it, I was like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. My anxiety was bad. And this was all a part of my holistic journey, because of course, your health is like in layers, right? Like onions. You have your mental state, you have your emotional, your soul, like all of it. So I was quite on this journey for myself too. After I had my son, see, our stories are very similar. When I had my son, my marriage was rocky, and there was a lot of things going on, and it was shaking up my whole world. And the only thing I knew was because everything else that I was doing was aligned, but my mind was not, because of what was happening. So I knew I had to go further than just the talk therapy, because you can go to talk therapy for years and it still won't make that impact that you really want. So then some people get frustrated and they give up, or they say it's not working. So just like with health conditions, to get to the root, when it comes to anxiety and all those things, it's in the mind. So that's why I went to hypnotherapy, and man, it made a huge difference for me and for others I know that had to go through that. So for you, do you do your hypnotherapy remote as well, or is it just in person?
No, I do it in person and like this, via video chat. When I first started doing it via video, I wasn't totally sure, even though I knew lots of other therapists who did it. Yeah. In fact, I know therapists who only work online.
Wow.
And I was still a bit sort of, oh, but aren't you supposed to have that personal connection? But in actual fact, I found that when people are in their own homes, they're automatically more relaxed. You know, I've had sessions with people in their pajamas, and they just feel already much more open and much more relaxed and much more comfortable. And because I work a lot with people with anxiety, that's really key, that, you know, they might not even want to leave their homes. So remote working is a beautiful way to have, as you say, a very powerful impact on people's lives. And it doesn't have to stretch on and on and on endlessly for years. I can help someone feel enormous amount better in just 6 sessions, less sometimes. So yeah, it is super powerful.
Yeah, and I've had quantum breakthrough sessions through my life coach, and then I did specifically hypnotherapy through a friend of mine who does medium work and like just a bunch of energy healing. And every single time I feel a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, almost like all the blockages that were in my mind that was preventing me from doing things was gone. And so I have to put, explain to people, like, you would never know how powerful this is until you try it, and you'd be surprised on what comes out, honestly. It's
Absolutely.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I love pairing it with Reiki as well, because the hypnotherapy gets to work on the mind and all of the minds, as you say, the limiting beliefs and all of those sort of layers of programming that we've had since we were children, and shape the way we think about the world. And then the Reiki gets to work on the energetic part of it. So it just, as a combo, it just changes how you feel, and it's effortless. I always found that traditional psychotherapy was incredibly valuable, but it didn't necessarily change anything. Made me understand it, but it didn't really change anything. But with hypnotherapy and Reiki, you get these profound transformations in the way that you feel. And it is like people just put down the weight of everything that they've been carrying for years sometimes. And they find that they can just let it go finally and get on with enjoying life.
Right. I know. I tell people all the time, if there's like something traumatic that you've experienced that is holding you back in ways that you never thought, or you get triggered by a certain event, hypnotherapy is the best, because sometimes it's hard for people to even talk about it. So that's why they don't even go to see a counselor or a therapist, because it's hard for them to vocalize those experiences. So this is a great alternative. Most definitely. I've had several traumatic things that happened to me throughout my life, and I honestly, the most effective way was through hypnotherapy and Reiki. And yes, I wish I did more Reiki in general, because I know if I just kept practicing it, it would become more natural. And I have to ask, do you do Reiki on animals?
I don't personally. I mean, I have two pets. I have two rescue animals. I have an anxious dog and a very, very confident cat. They're both rescued. And my dog has received Reiki from me, but not in any kind of formal capacity. I do know people who work with horses a lot, because horses tend to have a lot of anxiety issues. And I know that people work exclusively with horses with Reiki, and it works beautifully, because the horses are able to communicate on that non-verbal level and pick up on. Horses in particular, I know, are very reflective animals. In other words, they display the emotion that they are picking up in you. And so with Reiki, it can be a very beautiful way of allowing them to release whatever fears and anxiety they have that makes them, jumpy or jittery or, difficult to handle. It is, animals understand this energetic, non-verbal communication better than we do, I think.
Yeah. It's true. I've heard that a lot, that there are a lot of people that specialize with horses. And I've heard from a friend that there's actually somewhere here in California that there is a Reiki master that exclusively works for horses that are in races, because they want the horses to be mentally prepared for, the race they have coming up, or to make sure that they're on top of their tricks, which I thought was so, who would have ever thought there was a business out of that? Like I would have never, So
absolutely.
Yeah. And I have 2 dogs. And so the reason why I ask is because I've never attempted Reiki on them, but I know they really need it. Like my German Shepherd, super anxious, has been that way since he was 8 weeks old. And when they're small and fluffy, it's like, it's cute. They're like, oh, you little puppies. But now he's like 6 and like he's still so anxious. So I do want to get like Reiki done for him. And then my eldest one, she's a Chihuahua mix. So she's small. She's only like 14 pounds. She's been experiencing a lot of gut issues over the years. And I found ways to like help her with holistic medicine, but I know overall, like it would just help whatever is like internally going on with them. So that's why I asked. Yeah.
Well, if you're Reiki 2 trained, there's no reason on earth why you can't give them Reiki yourself. The chakras are in slightly different positions in animals than they are in humans. But to be honest, you could still just feel your way through. You're not going to get them to lie down for a formal session. No. But what you could do is just when you're stroking them or when you're cuddling them, you can just channel Reiki energy. You can just hold the Chihuahua mix. You can just hold the tummy. Just even for 5 minutes a day, it would have a huge impact on the nerves, nervous tummy, any pain issues that they're having. I mean, obviously, it's not a replacement for veterinary care, and we have to be really careful about making sure that everybody knows that. But I think stress exacerbates all physical symptoms and physical illnesses and issues. So if you can calm and soothe the stress, you absolutely will have an impact on the physical body as well.
Right. That's absolutely true. And I definitely will implement something, just because I, like when you mentioned Reiki, Reiki finds you. So my history with Reiki is my first therapist that actually like gave me the jump start to living a better life, because I had met her when I just graduated high school, and I was trying to heal from all my trauma from childhood. So that woman literally is one of the most influential people in my life, because I remember one of our sessions, she was like, have you ever heard of Reiki? And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And so she briefly described it to me and was showing it to me. And then fast forward to years later, my friend, a business partner, was the one who brought it up, what Reiki was, that she was the one who trained me. And so that was really cool. So yeah, I just love that when these holistic things pop up in your life and then you just kind of follow the trail on like what it may lead to in your life. It's so cool. Yeah. Let's talk about your book. So you wrote a book, The Hare and the Moon. So tell us the story behind that. How did that come about? What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, I was raised on traditional fables. So Aesop's fables, Hans Christian Andersen, beautiful, timeless tales that kind of took place in the natural world and had some sort of empowering message behind them, or moral tale, a fable. And I felt, with my son is neurodiverse, he experiences a lot of anxiety and occasional depression. And at that time, I mean, I first released this book, the first edition of it, I first released it a year ago. And at that time, there was nothing really on the market for him that was right for his age group. He was 10 then. And it was all aimed at a much younger audience. You know, it was all very kind of cute and fluffy, and here's your bag of worries, all that kind of stuff. And he was too old for that. But he was then also too young for the older teen stuff that was aimed at real sort of older kids. And I wanted to write something. I just knew, in fact, the title just came into my head fully formed, and I had no idea what the story was. I knew I wanted to write something that helped children to learn how to manage their emotions, to manage their anxiety, using mindfulness techniques, meditation techniques, but just using the power of their minds to help them learn at an early age how to calm their anxiety, how to manage their emotions, how to change how they feel for themselves, to take power over that for themselves. And I thought, you know, if we could have a generation of children who grow up already knowing this stuff, how incredible would that be for a sort of, you know, holistic, mindful, spiritual revolution of well-adjusted humans. That was the idea.
I love
yeah,
that.
The Hare and the Moon was born.
See, and I think it's like the universe was like channeling to you, like, hey, this is something you need to do because this could really make a difference. And it's never too early to teach these things to kids. Never.
Yeah.
And I wish back in the day they brought that up during my time, because I know it would have helped me recognize, like, okay, like this is how I can manage versus getting worked up or upset. And I mean, even for me, later on in life, I found out that I had signs of anxiety and depression, and I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you. I just thought I just labeled it stress. Yes. Like, that's it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so great that this is being talked about more and more and more. Yes. And you know, I had the same experience when I was a child. I had so many symptoms of really clear anxiety and real difficult time managing my own emotions. Mm-hmm. And if I had even known of these sorts of techniques back then, it would have made a huge impact on my life.
Right.
So yeah, and the fact is that when you're in that very emotional state, you're quite resistant to being taught techniques, things you're supposed to do. So the story works on a very subconscious level, and it uses that very calm, language that in itself is just very soothing and calming. It's written in a very calming voice.
Yeah.
So children and adults alike have already said that it's really helped them with their anxiety. And I have an audio book that goes with it, which I've narrated as well.
Mm-hmm.
That means that parents and children can share the book together.
Yeah.
So the child can read it for themselves, or the parent can read it to them, or they can listen to the audiobook together.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that it's just a very soothing experience for everybody.
Wow. So I'm going to be getting a copy of that because I know that, because my son, of course, loves bedtime stories. He's 3, going on 3.5 soon. And so he's a very... I mean, boys at that age, they're bouncing off the walls constantly regardless. So I have tried to, bring in calming things into his environment. That's why I'm not against, but I try to avoid a lot of overly stimulating things, because then he's just everywhere. Like the kids at that age just absorb all of that, and then just boom, it's just all over the place.
Absolutely. My son was the same, even from when before he was a toddler. He never slept. He was too interested in the world. Hearing these stories about how newborns will sleep for 18 hours a day, I'm like,
who?
I'm broken. He's not doing that. He was always crazy. And I've heard from lots of parents of really kind of high energy kids.
Yeah.
That normally when they do bedtime story, the kid is like fidgeting and running around, but with this story, that they just settle down and listen and become very calm. So
that sounds
hopefully
wonderful.
I'm onto something.
Yeah, please make more of these, because I'm sure parents all over the world will thank you.
Well, I intend it to be a series. I do have a lot of other stories already roughly written. So that's the plan throughout 2021, 2022, planning to release several more.
Yeah, because, as parents, we're always trying to find solutions to everything. It's like, it just never ends. As soon as you resolve one thing, then the next thing comes up. So even with my son right now, like you said, even before the toddler phase, my son was the same way, just would not stop. He stopped napping very early on. He has not napped in like 2 years now. And he's just up for 12 plus hours a day and does not stop moving. So it's funny because I want to get the audiobook too, right? So right now he watches a lot of Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig has a British accent. So I have to mention this. It's really funny since we're talking about our kids. Lately, when he calls out for me, instead of just saying mom in an American accent, he'll be like, mommy. And I'm like, what? It is the cute. It's so cute. It's so cute. I love it so much because when he says it, he says it with his body language. He just preps up and I don't know. It's so funny. I have to record him one time, hopefully, if I can catch it. Yeah. So if he listens to the audiobook, he'll probably pick up more of the British accent and speak to me more. So it's fine. Yeah.
We'll have him a little British young man before we finish.
I know. I love it because we're in California, so it's not common to have a British accent. But I mean, hey, I'm not complaining. I've always wanted a British accent myself. That's why I wanted to live in Europe for a while. It didn't happen because life took me a different direction. But it would be hilarious if that happens. Yeah. So I have to ask because I've never heard of this term, to be honest. Neurodiverse. So what does neurodiverse mean?
Neurodiverse, for me, is a term that describes any child with different or extra or complex needs. So basically what we're talking about is a child on the spectrum. But so many parents have a child on the spectrum without an official diagnosis. But I don't know what it's like in America, but the journey in the UK, the journey between thinking, I think something's not quite something's not quite right here, and up to discovering what that is through an assessment and an official diagnosis, that's a long journey. Potentially it could even be years. So in the meantime, I use that term neurodiverse. I don't think I didn't coin it, but I use it personally because it is a very good, useful umbrella term for any child who is responding neurologically differently than what is normal, what is perceived as being normal. So that could be, you know, a very hyperactive child, or it could be a child with a diagnosis of autism or ADHD or something like that, or it could be a child with, you know, more complex neurological problems or chronic illnesses, for example. So yeah, neurodiverse just means that they respond differently to the world. They respond in a non-typical way to the world, and that might throw up challenges for them, emotional challenges often, learning difficulties, all those sorts of things.
Got it. And see, this is just another way that we relate, because I'm actually on that journey right now with my son, where we are trying to find out if he's on the spectrum or not, which we don't know. I mean, there are certain things that do on the, you know, when you go through the list, when you research like, oh, does your child do this, this, and this, there are some things that come up. And so as a parent, especially a single parent, I mean, his dad is involved, but he doesn't live anywhere nearby. So it really is all on me to handle all of these things daily. And yeah, the journey has been going on for a while now, just trying to get that official, like, hey, he is on the spectrum or is not. Luckily, I have found who's in special education, and she's been working with children and their development for over 30 years. So luckily there are people out there that can't technically do the diagnosis, but they know how to manage the things that the child needs at this age. So
well, this is what I'm finding, is that although there isn't as much official support as anybody would like, because in this country it all comes through government funding, and there just is not enough of that.
Right.
But my focus, because of the exact situation that you're describing, my focus is working on mums of neurodiverse children, because while there are quite a number of resources and bodies to help children through that process, I've found that mums tend to be sidelined. As you will have already experienced, no doubt, it can be a very stressful, anxious, emotional journey.
Yes.
And when you're a single mom and you're coping with all of the behavioral difficulties that you're coping with as well, it's a big deal. So I've found that, because obviously I relate very strongly to that situation, I've gained an enormous amount of pleasure with working with those types of women who are going through that journey, who are caring for someone. And it doesn't have to be a neurodiverse child. You know, there are so many women who are doing it all. They're carrying the can for, you know, absent partners, or just for families that all rely on them. And women have a tendency to put their needs right at the bottom of the list of priorities. So yeah, so the book was intended as something to, yes, to support children, but also to support parents who were going through that journey as well.
I just love the work that you're doing. I have to say, like, everything that you've dedicated, you know, to helping your son, finding other moms that, see, look, my dog's right here, finding, he's never made an appearance before, so this is hilarious.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm the same way. Like, whenever I feel like that calling, like, there's other women that are in my position that could really use the support and the help. And that's what led me to this podcast, right? Because I'm very passionate about this subject of holistic health. And that could mean so many different things, which I think people don't realize. Like right now, we're talking about children that, you know, have anxiety, have signs of depression, that need that support. And then the moms as an extension, which it's so true, because moms, are sidelined a lot. And it wasn't until my son was 1.5 years, 2 years old, where I finally was like, okay, now I can work on myself. Like, for so long, it's always just been about him, which of course it's going to be about the kids. But how can you take care of your children if you yourself are not all there, or you yourself are not, you know, doing well? So
this is it. You can't pour from an empty well. And the work that I do teaches women that it's not about being selfish, and it's not about being a neglectful mother. It's just about keeping yourself topped up with energy, with well-being, so that you are able to stay the course. You know, I can't fix anything for anybody. I can't make your child suddenly not neurodiverse. I can't alleviate your situation, really. You know, I can't bring anyone into the house to do the job for you. But what I can do is make it possible for you to stay the course, so that you can stay in your center, that you can get the rest that you need, the very powerful, concentrated rest that you get in those types of sessions. You can keep your mental health topped up, it just enables people to keep going, because I'm sure you've experienced this, there are times when you just think, that's it, I'm done, I can't do anymore.
You're right. Right.
So yeah, it's so important, I think, to keep people afloat.
Yes, it's so true, especially right now during COVID. This is like the best time to focus on your mental health, because a lot of people are struggling, especially parents in general, not just small children, everyone, because our whole world was shifted to where we're all, stuck at home. Parents are having to wear more hats than usual with, the homeschooling. And I know you're homeschooling too, right? Because everyone's at home. So.
At the moment, where we are, the schools are all open, but I suspect that we're headed for the schools closing again. I would think within the next 3 or 4 weeks. I can see that happening. Yeah.
Oh man.
And yeah, homeschooling is a huge challenge. And the thing is that I have friends who, before COVID, chose to home educate.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's not homeschooling. It's crisis management, because homeschooling is a very different thing. You meet up with other parents, you go on trips together, the children socialize with other children. Right. There are all sorts of resources, but they all are dependent on you having access to the outside world.
Right.
So being locked in your own home, that's not homeschooling. That is just, getting by as best you can. And it's super stressful.
Yeah. And then imagine the kids that, can't sit down and focus, like my son, and trying to have him do a virtual preschool program. Not happening.
Yeah. Not
That probably was the hardest thing I've had to do in so long, was just trying to get him to do circle time. And wow, like I actually became more frustrated than relieved, because I'm just like, he can't I'm trying to balance other things while he's trying to focus on this. It did not go as planned. So
absolutely. Yeah. And the thing was, when we were in our first period of lockdown, and we had battled through this homeschooling thing for months, and as it was starting to ease and we were heading towards our summer break, I think it was about 2 weeks before the end of term, and I turned to my son and I said, you know what, we're not doing anymore. We're stopping. Right. And he just wept with relief.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just like, oh, thank God, the pressure is off.
Right.
And I think that mums experience so much guilt and shame that they're not able to work for a living, and to parent their child, and to keep them off the screens, and to stop them playing Fortnite, and to do the homeschooling, and to make the house look reasonable. And it
and the pets.
Yeah. Oh. So guilt and shame are a huge factor in all of that, adding pressure on as well.
Right. So basically what we're telling our listeners today is, don't feel bad at all. Give yourself some grace for the load that you're carrying, because we're all just doing our best, and we're all, just managing as best as we can right now. So it's okay. If the kids are having extra screen time, shoot, my son has been playing on his tablet a lot more than usual, because he's not going to see his friends. He's not able to go to the parks. Like, before all of this, he was getting plenty of time outside of the house, and his sleep was better then, because he was, burning out his energy. Yes. Now he does not get to burn out his energy. So sleep has been a little bit of a struggle here. Especially when you have a very high energy child, boy. So but if anything, I've just learned, just it goes back to my podcast, Carpe Diem, right? Seize the day. So I'm like, you know what? If it doesn't work out, we're going to seize the day anyway. What are we going to do today? We're going to color. We're going to try to attempt to watch a movie, maybe watch some more Peppa Pig. I don't know. Yeah. So that's all you got to do. Yeah.
You just got to do what you got to do, and absolutely let go of any idea that you can manage it all, do it all, be, thriving, learn a new skill and all of that. Just bring all those expectations right down. Be so gentle and loving and kind to yourself. And absolutely.
That's the biggest takeaway, guys. You heard it here first, especially during COVID. So, oh my gosh, Sophie, talking to you was very calming for me. Like, usually I'm very upbeat, but I feel like talking to you was just chill, and I loved it. So your vibe really channeled all the way through here, through this screen.
Thank you.
For sure. So I'm just excited to dive into your books. I will definitely be getting that after this interview, and I'll make sure to have that all in the description box as well if any of our listeners would like to take a look and get it for their child too. So Sophie, tell our listeners where they can find you online to connect with you.
The best place to look for me is either on my Facebook page, which is at Sophie Shaw Heals, or they can come to my website, sophieshaw.co.uk. And all the information about the book and lots of other free resources are on the website. And I've got a wonderful course coming up in November, an online meditation course, a weekly series of weekly meditation retreats specifically for anxious women. So if anyone wants to join that, all the details are there on my website.
I'm signing up. So just get heads up, because that sounds like something I need right now. That is for sure. And don't forget, we have our podcast insiders group, everyone. So if you want to connect with our guests, you can do so in there as well. But yeah, thank you all again for listening, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you again so much, Sophie.
Thank you.